the most incredible, most hyped upcoming 2025 games. Now, are they incredible because they're going to be amazing, or are they simply not credible? Pre-order at your peril. Either way, these are all massive new games that are very anticipated, but are you waiting for any of them? Let's find out. Going big, Monster Hunter Wilds. This is the new game in the Monster Hunter series of games, which is part of a big franchise, and the previous Monster Hunter game was massively successful, and this new one is basically about nature, transforming environments, and hunting of monsters in bigger and more impressive landscapes. This one is set to be releasing on the 28th of February 2025, and it's gonna be a big one. I don't think they can really go wrong with this. The Monster Hunter series has always been very popular, and with the previous game blowing up so big, this new one is just, I'm expecting, gonna continue the success. Now, of course, in this one, you'll be fulfilling your duty as a hunter by tracking and defeating powerful monsters and forging strong new weapons and armor from the materials you harvest. But you'll also be uncovering the connection between the people of the Forbidden Lands and the locales they inhabit. And you'll be exploring this living environment filled with monsters, hunting those monsters with partners and fellow expedition members that you'll encounter new characters as you go through the story and progress your journey. I mean, it generally looks fantastic. Just from the trailers and the gameplay we've seen so far, it looks like what Monster Hunter is expected to be, and it's gonna be difficult for them to go wrong with this, but you never know. As always, the hype is always really big for everything on this list. Just be a little bit cautious. As I said, pre-order at your peril, but, you know, if you're into Monster Hunter, you're probably going to love this. You should always be a little bit cautious either way. Then for one that was announced suddenly and delayed suddenly, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Here we have a story-driven action RPG set in this medieval era, and if you don't know the first game, it sort of had a rough time going through early access, going through alpha and beta. I played a little bit of it and it was really rough at the start, but when it finally released, it was huge. Mainly because not just it looked phenomenal visually and graphically, but the gameplay was first-person RPG with a unique and detailed and skill-based combat system with the dueling and the weapons and the swords and shields, and the story was cool as well, and that means this one is living up to the original game. And this isn't like an established series like Monster Hunter, which has been going for a long time. Kingdom Come Deliverance, the first one, is a significant success, and now, because of the success, the sequel, it has massive expectations, and that's why people were sort of expecting it was coming, and then some people were thinking, well, will it be a 2024 game? And then they announced it for 2024, and it was like, whoa, it's suddenly coming, and then they were like, no, we're gonna delay it to 2025. So now Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is set for February 11th, 2025, and this difficulty of living up to the expectations set of the first game is a big theme these days, and generally speaking, but it's just, once you set that bar, once you set that standard, can you really raise it further without losing what was so special about the original? And we've seen a little bit of Kingdom Come Deliverance, the sequel, and it's looking pretty good. But when it all comes together, we'll have to assess it. But luckily not too long from now, early on in 2025. Keeping the swords but moving to the east, Ghost of Yōtei. This is the long-awaited sequel to what many consider to be the definitive samurai game, Ghost of Tsushima. And this time, it's introducing a new character with a new adventure, and you are going to be playing this wandering warrior through feudal Japan. And I suppose that makes the person more of a ronin than a samurai. I'm not entirely sure of the specific differences, but I think that's correct. Now, they haven't gone into the specifics too much at this point. It's going to be taking place in the early 1600s, more than 300 years after the events of Ghost of Tsushima. and they want to introduce new mechanics and raise the bar on the story. And they're promising a lot with their visions and their goals, and the trailer does look very promising, very amazing, but it's not really gameplay, it's mostly cinematics or machinimas. In-engine footage is generally what they say. So we haven't really seen too much of Ghost of Yōtei, but the hype is real, and if you're looking for a new samurai-esque game, then this is going to be the one that everyone is looking forward to. It has been confirmed for a 2025 release, but no specific window in the year, so we will have to wait and see what they reveal over the coming months, and then you should be able to judge from the more detailed reveals whether this is one that you're going to be wanting to slash through. For a more turn-based strategic approach, Sid Meier's Civilization 7. Civilization is one of the oldest game series in the world. Over 30 years at this point, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's over 30 years old. And the latest iteration has some people sort of wary and cautious because they're going in a slightly different direction. I mean, it's a turn-based ahistorical 4X strategy game. I mean, it's only changing so much, but there's a few changes that people are sort of noting, and it's a little unclear whether it's actually going to work. So some of the big changes in Civilization 7, besides the visual style and the obvious, is that there's supposed to be this evolution of your civilization. So going through the eras, which they now have 3 major eras of the game, going through these eras, your civilization is actually supposed to change. And what they've shown so far is minimal, but that has some people up in arms. They're like asking, can't I just stay as the same Civ through the whole game? Or what if the changes don't really make sense? Some have made more sense than others at this point, but I think until we get the full flowchart of what's possible and what's recommended and what the natural paths of these civilizations are, then it's very hard to judge whether it's good or bad. There's a lot of knee-jerk reactions whenever a popular series of games changes anything. When Civ 4 went to Civ 5 and they changed to hex grids and unstacked units, a lot of people were up in arms about that, but then Civ 5 became the most popular one ever. And then Civ 6 went to unstacked cities, a whole new graphical style and other changes. And then Civ 6 became the most popular one as well. So generally, it seems like for older Civ players, you tend to have an older favorite. Personally, I started with Civ 2, and a lot of you would have started with Civ 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and generally people like the first one they played more than anything else. That tends to be the rule. But the audience for Civilization has gotten bigger and bigger every single game, so they're gonna keep going down the path that they have been going down, which has not just increased the audience size, the player base has increased, the amount of money they're making as well has been increasing. So if you have not enjoyed the direction Civilization has been going over the past few games, then just be extra cautious with Civ 7 because they are continuing down that path because it has been so successful for them. And do keep in mind that the older Civilization games are still there. Like, I still have a good time playing Civ 2, and I've been playing a bunch of Civ 4 recently as well, just for fun. But yeah, Civilization 7 is undoubtedly one of the biggest, most hyped games of 2025. And just keep in mind, it always takes 2 years and 2 expansions before a Civ game really takes off. That was true of Civ 4, 5, and 6. So Civ 7, it's gonna be sort of in development for the next 2 years as well, through 2025, 2026, and it'll probably be considered complete around 2027 at some point. Hey, now that you're a bit into the video, I'm sure you're enjoying it, so it would be greatly appreciated if you can like the video. And if you want to support, use the GOG referral link below to buy any game or become a patron on the Patreon, because YouTube demonetizes for ridiculous reasons these days. Thank you. Alright, next game. Dune Awakening. This has been in our sights for a while now, and it is a Dune survival, open world crafting, MMO kind of game. And a lot of people were asking, well, what kind of MMO are we talking about here? What does that even mean these days? Because people say Ark is an MMO, or a game with 16 players is an MMO, or Fallout 76 is an MMO. So is Dune Awakening supposed to be like that? Or is it actually going to be like hundreds or thousands of players in a location, or at least on a server? And they have been making posts, and they have revealed more in-engine footage, more gameplay-ish kind of stuff. And it is promising to be an MMO with various world hubs for you to explore with, and each hub sort of does different things. So it's aiming to be like an MMO. Now note, not an MMORPG like World of Warcraft, but it is trying to be and promising to be an MMO survival game. Now, whether it lives up to that scale is hard to say at this point, but we have seen some very interesting things. We've got the ornithopters, we've got Dune, we've got Spice, and with Dune being in vogue so much right now with the modern films, it's very, very much hoped for to be a long-lasting Dune experience. But it's hard to do that at all. So it's planning for a 2025 release, but this is going to be one of those games where it's likely gonna release with a certain limited set of features, or just a bit more straightforward, and it's gonna be something that they want to develop for years and years to come. Now, it could be short-lived. Many MMOs have come and gone within the span of a year or less. But then sometimes, just occasionally, you get those that last for years and years and years into the decades, and we can never predict how these are gonna go. Dune Awakening looks great from the trailer, but we will find out what it really is in 2025. For a modern classic, Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era. This is a new Heroes of Might and Magic game, but it seems to be going back to what made the originals great, or at least it's trying to do that, where it just looks more classic, even though it's got quite a lot of visual fidelity and modern effects. It seems to be trying to hit that retro modernity, which is so popular these days. And, I can't help but wonder, maybe the success of Songs of Conquest brought Heroes of Might and Magic away from the pure modern approach into a more classic approach. But whatever the reason, they seem to have decided that Heroes of Might and Magic going back to an older style, keeping some modern quality of life improvements, seems to be what they think is gonna make bank. And of course, a lot of people are excited about this. Heroes of Might and Magic is one of the oldest strategy series in the world, and people have been sort of conflicted about the more modern iterations, and that's sort of where Songs of Conquest came from. It's like, oh, we're gonna serve you old Heroes of Might and Magic fans, we're gonna give you the classic experience, but a bit more modern. And that really sort of worked. It took off this year. Maybe now it's like, oh, okay, Heroes of Might and Magic, we're the official ones, we're gonna do it, but we're gonna do it better. And we can see if they're going to do that. It's a turn-based strategy game. You explore the map. There's tactical battles on what seems to be what everyone expects from a Heroes of Might and Magic game. I mean, it just looks like a remake of the older games. And I think a lot of people are gonna be into that if they just nail what it is. So it's supposed to be releasing into early access, though, keep that in mind, in Q2 2025. So it's going into early access, and they want to be in early access for about a year to implement feedback and test multiplayer features and all of that. So it's gonna be a 2026 full release if they stick to their schedule. By around the middle of 2025, we should see basically where it's going. Next, we've got the sequel to a surprise hit, Slay the Spire 2. This is a rogue-like deck builder, and you craft unique decks, you encounter bizarre creatures, and you discover relics of immense power. And this is the sequel to the original game, which was insanely big. Now, to be clear, the original game has about 140,000 user reviews on Steam at 97% overwhelmingly positive. But that game released in January 2019, and it's been half a decade since. So how do you top a 97% positive overwhelming score with a sequel. And we talked about this earlier. It's how do you live up to the huge popular success of the original game? And there's a lot of promises on how they could develop and continue and build from the original game. It's saying it's been rebuilt from the ground up, completely rewritten in a new game engine. So modern features, all new visuals, expanding modability, and there's supposed to be new ways to play, but they haven't gone into that quite yet. We're looking to the future, so things aren't always clear. Generally though, I think a lot of people are gonna jump onto Slay the Spire 2, but will it have the resounding, lasting success of the original game? We will never know until it happens. But if you like the original, or you're just looking for a new roguelike card game, Slay the Spire 2 is coming in 2025. Okay, now this next game, I guess technically doesn't exist. It's Deadlock by Valve. It's a new multiplayer game, hero shooter by Valve. And officially, despite having hundreds of thousands of players already, officially this barely exists. There's no official trailer besides this clip that I can show you. There's no official screenshots. And if you want to play the game right now, it's invite only. So I don't really have any proper permission to show you anything of what Deadlock is, and I'd prefer to lean on the safe side. And I don't want any strikes coming through on YouTube. This is a new hero multiplayer shooter by Valve, so how could it not be popular and massive? I mean, it already kind of is with hundreds of thousands of players, but the game is not released yet. No, it doesn't exist. So this is a Steam game. It's a Valve game. So of course they're gonna push it massively. It's hard to fail when you basically own the bank. What else can I say? I mean, I don't want to go into details. It's unclear what is or isn't public knowledge at this point, but if you look up Deadlock, you'll see a lot more of it. It's just, I don't want to get in trouble for sharing something I shouldn't. But yeah, Deadlock, it's likely going to be a massive game. It already is right now. It'll likely release in some form in 2025. Okay, and then I have to mention this one, Hollow Knight Silksong. And yes, 2025 might be a touch of copium, but whether this game releases in 2025 or not, it is definitely one of the most anticipated and hyped games upcoming, and people are sort of expecting it to be 2025, but no one can promise that. They announced this years ago. 5 years ago, I think they announced it, and it was supposed to release a long time ago, and then it was delayed indefinitely, and apparently they're still working on it, and the trailer they've put out does look amazing. It's the sequel to Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight, the first one, was massively successful and popular as well. I think it still is. So Silksong, because it's been delayed so much, they revealed, in the trailer, it looks like a pretty complete game. I mean, from the trailer is what I'm saying. It looks like the game was there. So people were hyped for it, and then it was delayed, and now we don't know when it's coming. So it's just, the hype has grown more and more, and hopefully the game has grown more and more in this time. I can't promise you this is gonna be a 2025 release. Generally speaking, any release date is not a release date until it actually releases, because delays happen all the time. And Hollow Knight Silksong is at least being honest. They're just saying it's to be announced, to be confirmed. It's not necessarily coming at any point. But 2025 feels like a good time for Hollow Knight Silksong to release, and whether it does or not, it is definitely one of the most anticipated games of the next year. For more fast-paced action from a classic series and classic developers, Doom: The Dark Ages. The Doom reboot in general kinda brought back to life the fast-paced single-player action first-person shooter. And this is a cool new twist to up the ante. You are still Doom Guy, going around fighting demons, but this time there's sort of a medieval, sci-fi medieval twist. You are the super weapon in this war against hell. Doom Eternal, basically were just massive successes, and like I said, first-person shooters, single-player first-person shooters for a long time was sort of slowing down. Doom sort of brought it back to that classic feel in a modern world, and with the previous two games being massive successes, Doom: The Dark Ages is the next iteration, and it looks hype, it looks fast-paced, it looks brutal, and you're gonna go around cutting up demons. Rip and tear until it is done. So Doom: The Dark Ages is coming in 2025. It's still by id Software, and I think if you're into Doom, then you're gonna be into this. I mean, how could you not be? If they somehow mess it up, it's gonna disappoint so many people, but I have to imagine, from what we've seen, there's even dragon riding. I think people are gonna like this one. Hopefully I'm right on that. Okay, now I'm gonna mention something that is confirmed for 2025, Borderlands 4. So, Gearbox in general has had some ups and downs recently, and it's been a bit of what feels to be a bit of a messy ride with what they've been doing. And this one is calling itself the definitive looter shooter, arriving in 2025, and it's supposed to be the next Borderlands mainline game, where you play a legendary vault hunter and you're searching for secret alien treasure and blasting everything in sight. So Borderlands is a very popular series, although it did have that recent movie. Tales from the Borderlands was also kind of fun. I mean, Borderlands is a franchise that people love, and that's why standards are pretty high. Now, we haven't seen anything specific on Borderlands 4. They've put out this cinematic trailer, which has built some hype, and it could be one of the biggest games of the year, but maybe not. I mean, it's... This is one I would put a little bit of extra caution on, just to be safe. You can keep an eye on it, but wait for more news and reveals over the coming year, and then we'll see what it actually is. Alright, next we've got Fable, the new Fable game. And in its initial reveal, people were kind of on the fence about it, and I think they still are. Because what Fable is, it's an old series. Fable 1, 2, and 3 were a long time ago. This is sort of a reboot, a new beginning for the franchise, and it's, I don't know whether you want to call it Fable 4 or just Fable. It's basically attempting to be a reboot, and you are a hero in the fairy tale land of Albion, and there is a dark threat looming. I mean, it sounds like a classic fantasy RPG action-adventure kind of game. But Fable, famously, has been sort of multifaceted in the past, with a lot of comedy, a lot of parody, but also a sense of seriousness and sentimentality. So the old Fable games sort of become these classics that people really love. And this reboot might not live up to what you're expecting it to be. It might be similar vein, it might actually turn out to be quite similar overall, or it could be something that's quite different. We haven't actually seen proper raw gameplay, like an extended gameplay demonstration of the new Fable, but it is supposed to be coming in 2025. They haven't committed to a specific window, but from what we've heard, they are aiming for 2025. It of course could be delayed. But I think one thing that threw off a lot of people is how jokey and comedic the initial reveals have been, particularly, I mean, even to the point of getting Richard Ayoade, the famous comedian, to be part of one of the main trailers. So a lot of people came out sort of upset that it was not taking it seriously, that it was just making a joke. But also Fable has been kind of a parody in many regards. Hunting chickens, farting, you know, that sort of stuff. So I think it's just a bit hard to show everything Fable is in a single trailer, so when they put out a funny trailer, people think, oh what, it's just gonna be a parody game? But then they put out a more serious trailer, and it's like, oh well, it's lost all its charm. So Fable is supposed to be, and kinda has to be, a lot of things for a lot of people, and encapsulating that all into a single game and delivering what everyone wants is a pretty hefty challenge, and it's really uncertain whether Fable can actually deliver on everything. It'll probably deliver on a lot of things for a lot of people, but I think people will be torn one way or another. So Fable, it is very much anticipated. It is very hyped. And just keep in mind that it might not be to your tastes, or it might be to your tastes. Have a closer look when we actually know more in 2025, and then we can assess whether it's actually gonna be one that you want to jump into. And then we actually have a new game from Hello Games, Light No Fire. So this is from the creators of No Man's Sky, and I want to remind everyone the journey of No Man's Sky. When I first talked about No Man's Sky in these list videos so many years ago, people were like jumping on my video saying, yeah, No Man's Sky, oh, so hyped, it's amazing. And then No Man's Sky released, and then people were jumping at me on the same video saying, oh, how could you list No Man's Sky? What a failure, what a disappointment. You are such a terrible YouTuber for listing it. And then as the years went on and No Man's Sky became what's considered to be a good game, people are jumping onto the same video again saying, yeah, No Man's Sky, hype, it's amazing. The same video. Because No Man's Sky went on such a journey from this massive, overhyped promise, which was just not delivered on launch day. But No Man's Sky continued to get updates, continued to get improvements to the point where now it's actually surpassed, I'm pretty sure, everything they initially promised. Do correct me if I'm wrong on that, but basically No Man's Sky today is considered a massively popular and successful game. This new one sort of looks like a fantasy No Man's Sky. I mean, it seems like even the trailer, how it's shot, is very Hello Game style with their slow pans through the environment. And it looks like fantasy No Man's Sky. It's a procedurally generated world, fantasy setting, you're building, crafting, surviving, all that stuff. And it could be a nice, fun little twist to No Man's Sky if you've grown tired of the theme, of the sci-fi theme, and want a different flavor. But is Light No Fire going to release how No Man's Sky did, or have Hello Games learned their lesson? How much of a journey will Light No Fire go on? It's hard to say. At the moment, it is estimated to be releasing in 2025, but whenever this game releases, you can expect it to get bigger and major updates throughout the years moving forward. It's probably gonna be at least 5 to 10 year project as long as it gains some traction, or even if it doesn't gain some traction. They stuck with No Man's Sky through the rough patch, so we can hope for Light No Fire to launch into a big, strong success, but we can at least hope that if Light No Fire releases in a messy state, they do stick with it until it becomes what's considered a good game. We'll have to see what journey we go on this time around. For what's loosely considered to be the closest possible competitor to Skyrim, Avowed. This is from Obsidian Entertainment, and it's a first-person fantasy RPG, which it was supposed to release in 2024, but it got delayed to February 2025, so not too long into the future, and generally it seems to be, I mean, it's hard to fault what we've seen so far. There's dual wielding of wands, there's battle mage approaches, there's guns, there's magic, there's an RPG world to explore. It looks great, it sounds great, it seems to have all the elements you want. And so it sort of feels like, yeah, this is what's gonna work. But there is also this sense where it's not really doing anything wrong, but is it enough to draw people away? Because Skyrim mods are still going. Skyrim is essentially still growing and being developed by modders and expanding, and it just gets better and better every year thanks to modders. So Avowed isn't so much competing with Skyrim at this point, it's now competing with modders. Also note things like Skyblivion and Skywind are on the way as well, and I think Avowed is sort of actually going to compete with those more than anything else. People are still hyped for Avowed, and I think a lot of people are going to give it a shot, especially because I think the Wayward Realms is a bit further out. I think early access for the Wayward Realms is supposed to start sometime by the end of 2025 as well, but it's not going to release in 2025. So the Wayward Realms is from the original Daggerfall developers, and that will be very interesting to see. And I think similarly with Avowed, people will jump into it and give it a shot, but the staying power, the lasting power of how particularly Skyrim seemed to have that magic that people just stick with. It's always hard to see, like, even understand what is that magic that keeps people around. Maybe it's just extensive modding, you know? And Avowed could do it. It's promising. And I will probably give it a shot myself as well. I just don't want to get too hyped because so many things can go wrong with a game this big. And I'll give it a shot. But we will see. For a very trippy sequel, Death Stranding 2 on the beach. Now, it's almost impossible to describe Death Stranding in any truly accurate way. I mean, how do you find the words to communicate what this game is? And now there's a sequel coming out as well. It's a cinematic, surrealist, kind of semi-horror, open-world action delivery game. And there's a baby that reflects the state between life and death. I mean, if you've never played the original, you won't really know what's going on in the trailer for the new one. And if you have played the original, you probably also still don't really know what's going on in the trailer for the new one. There's more gross fluids, a sentient stop-motion puppet that hangs around and comments on things. There's an electric guitar that's actually an electrified weapon. There's incredible action fight sequences, and then just a lot of walking through magnificent environments. Despite the amazingly bizarre original game, the original was a huge success and now the sequel is on the way. It's unclear if you have to play the first game to really understand the new sequel. I would guess yes, because the original was already way out there and this one is going even further out there. Now, there were people who were worried about Death Stranding 2 being delayed, but Hideo Kojima did recently confirm that it is on track for a 2025 release, so it does give you time to play the original if you're interested, but again, it's hard to describe what Death Stranding is, and it's one of those really unique artistic expressions that I think can only come from the mind of Kojima Productions. So yeah, Death Stranding 2 on the beach is scheduled and set for 2025 with some confidence, so we'll be seeing that in the coming year. And of course, scheduled for 2025 is Grand Theft Auto 6 by Rockstar Games. Grand Theft Auto is one of, if not the most profitable piece of media ever. I think last I heard, Grand Theft Auto 5, GTA 5 was the most profitable piece of media ever. So money is no object for Rockstar Games in terms of developing a new game, and the new GTA has been a long time coming, and it's going back to Vice City, fictional Miami, Florida. I don't think something could be more hyped than this new GTA game. Describing how expected and how hyped this is hard to describe. Essentially what we've seen is a very impressive looking trailer. It seems to be a Bonnie and Clyde kind of story approach. There's gonna be crime, there's gonna be violence, there's gonna be parody and humor, and can GTA 6 capture all of that for the world today? So there was a lot of speculation on whether the next GTA would go further back into the past and maybe do a 60s or 70s or go into the future, but they decided to do GTA 6 in modern day, as in modern to today. It can then also lean into everything that's going on today, and it could be amazing. GTA 6 is like the last game I would want to do any sort of predictions for, outside the fact where it will have a lot of sales on day one. I know it'll have that, but besides that, it could go in any direction, and we have to hope that all the money Rockstar has made will lend itself to an amazing GTA 6. I'm not here to sell the game. I do want to put a little bit of a restraint on the hype, and always remember, pre-order at your peril. And there you go, that was a bunch of games. Which one was your favorite, and do you think any others deserve a mention? This is of course just one list of many that I've made. Maybe the game you're looking for is in another on the playlist. Check that linked on screen and down below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.